Welcome back again in Lesson 9 Decision Making and Looping. You will learn about single loop and nested loop and how to write programs using those loops.
So, what is looping actually? Looping allows a program to execute a block of codes repeatedly as long as a condition is true. Why we use loop? Instead of writing instructions repeatedly, we use loop to save time, reduce length, and avoid error. There are actually three basic parts in looping: initialization, conditional part, and increment or decrement part. Every loop is controlled by a variable. There should be initialization of the variable. Then the conditional part will decide how many times or it will execute the loop. Okay, and increment and decrement part will be based on the criteria. We will see three basic loop. One is for loop, second one is while loop, and third one is do while loop. Okay, in both C and Python, for loop and while loop exist in the C and Python, but do while loop only exists in C. Python does not support do while loop. How it will look like when we use for loop in C. So we just write for, then the first bracket. So we know that there are three portions: initialization part, conditional part, and increment or decrement part. That's why the first portion is the initialization part, then semicolon, then conditional part, semicolon, then increment or decrement part. Initialization part actually tells us the starting point of the loop. Then in that conditional part always the value will check the condition. If the condition is false, that time it will out of the loop. Otherwise, it will always execute the statements. Okay, then it is increment and decrement part. The value will be increment or decrement based on criteria. Now, just look at how we have to write for loop in Python. So here for, this is our controlled. This loop will controlled by variable. So for the variable name, then in range, this is a start, a stop, a step. That means this is the starting position of the loop. This is the condition portion of the loop, and this is the increment or decrement part of the loop. Okay, until uh, the statement will be executed until the condition is false. Okay, that's clear. Try to see how a single loop works. So we know already there are three portions: initialization portion, conditional portion, and increment and decrement portion. Okay, so initially the loop is started from initialization part, then it will go to the conditional part. If the condition is false, then it will exit from the loop. Okay, otherwise if the condition is true, it will go to the statements from for execution. Go to the statements for execution. Then it will increment and decrement the loop variable. Okay, the value of the loop variable. Then it will go to the conditional part again. And this process will continue until the condition is false. This is the basic task of a basic single loop. Suppose we need to print all values from 1 to 10. So how we can write the code? From 1 to 10, we know that our values are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So for that, we just need a for loop. Then we know each loop is controlled by a variable. So you will give a name of that loop, that variable, name of that variable. that is I, and we have to actually print odd values from 1. That means initialization point will be 1, I is equal to 1. Then semicolon. Then, so what should be the highest value of I? That is 10. That means we have to write the condition I is less than or equal to 10. Until I less than or equal to 10, the statement within the for loop will be executed. Then, uh, this is actually increment or decrement part. Okay. So in this increment or decrement part, we have to think I will be incremented or decremented. I will be incremented because initially the value of I is equal to 1. Then we have to check I is equal to 2. Then we have to check I is equal to 3. Every value of I until 10. To check that the number is odd or even. Okay. That's why I will be incremented by 1. That is I plus pass, or we can write it I is equal to I plus 1. Then in that segment, we have to write this statement. If we just print printf percent %d, since I is an integer variable, the format specifier for the I is %d. So print %di. If we write it, is it correct? No, actually, now it will print every value of I. 1. For I equal to 1, it will print 1. For I equal to 2, okay, how it actually works. Initially, I is equal to 1. So when I is equal to 1, that time it will print the value of I. Okay. After executing this statement, it will go to the increment or decrement section. This is increment section. Now I is equal to 2. For I is equal to 2, it will check the condition part. While this is true, I is equal to 2 now. So this is true, then it will execute this statement. That means it will print 2. Then it will go to the increment or decrement portion. Now I is equal to 3. So I is equal to 3. Now it will come to the condition portion. Yes, this is true. That means when it is true, then execute this statement. That is print the value of I. So similarly, this will be the output. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But actually, our task is to print only odd values. That means 2 should not be printed, 4 should not be printed, 6 should not be printed, 8 should not be printed, 10 should not be printed. Okay? Just we need 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. For that, we have to write a condition. What is condition? What is the condition? Just we write if I modulus 2 is equal to is actually not equal to 0. When when I mod 2 is not equal to 0, that time we can say that this is a odd number. For example, if we divide 1 by 2, we will get 1. Okay. If we divide 3 by 2, we will get 1. If we divide 5 by 2, it will get 1. Okay. So every time we will get the value of remainder is 1. So when if I modulus 2 is not equal to 0, we just print the value of I. This is our code in C. So just try uh, to write the same code in Python by yourself. Okay, basic structure of while loop. So we see the initialization part is out of the loop. So this is the initialization part. Then we have to write the while, and after writing this while within first bracket, we have to write the conditional part here. Okay, when the condition is true, the statement will be executed. Then the increment and decrement part is here. Okay, so initially this is the initialization part, there is the conditional part, and statements will be there. Then increment or decrement part will be there in the loop. So it is a basic structure of while loop. So if we write the previous program that we write by for loop, so how we can write it? Okay, so initially the variable is integer I. So initialization part was I is equal to 1. Okay, now while I is less than or equal to 10. So we have to write the condition if I mod to not equal to 0, then printf %d space comma, that is I. Okay, and we have to increment the value of I is equal to I plus 1. Okay. So we just rewrite the previous program using while loop here. Now move forward to the while loop in Python. In Python, this is initialization part, then while there is no fast bracket, then the conditional part, then colon portion. Then we will give some indentation here, then write the statements here. Then this is the increment and decrement part. Okay, we just rewrite the program in Python by using while here. I is equal to 1, this is the initialization portion, while I is greater or while I is less or equal 10. Okay, colon. When it is true, then if I modulus 2 not equal to 0, then printf, it should not be printf, it will be print I. Okay, it will look like this. The below of I, then there is a space. Okay, now proceed to the do while loop portion. So this is the basic structure of do while loop. Write down the initialization part out of the loop before starting the loop. Then there is write do second bracket. All statement and increment decrement part will be within this column, within this block, do block. Then while condition part will be there. Okay, so initially it will check the it will start from the initialization part, then it will execute the all statement and increment or decrement part, then it will check the condition. When the condition is true, it will continue to execute the statements. Okay, when condition is false, it will out from the loop. So how we can write the previous program using do while? Just declare variable int I. It will start from I is equal to 1. Then write down do. Then write down the statements, which is if I modulus 2 is not equal to 0, then print %d comma I. Okay, then while the condition will be here, I is less than or equal to 10. It's simple. So we see that we just print odd numbers from 1 to 10 using for loop, while loop, and do while loop. Okay, I think it is pretty clear how to write the same code in for loop, while loop, and do while loop. No, there is a question. Write a loop to calculate the sum of following series. There are 4 series here. 1 plus 2 plus 3 up to n, 1 plus 3 plus 5 up to n, 2 plus 4 plus 6 up to n, 1 plus 5 plus 9 up to n. So we should write this is A, B, C, D. For A, what should be the initialization part? What should be the conditional part, and what will be the increment or decrement part? So here we see that the initial value is 1. That means initialization part we can write I is equal to 1. Then it's up to n. That means I is less than or equal to n. So I is incremented by 1. That is 1, this is 2. That means only one difference. That's why here it will be I is equal to I plus 1. Okay. But we need to sum up all of the value. How we can write the instruction? So initially, we just consider sum is equal to 0. At initially, then we can write sum equal to sum plus I. That means initially sum is equal to 0. Then when I equal to 1, sum will be sum plus I. That means 0 plus 1, that is 1. When I equal to 2, sum will be sum plus I. That means now the value of sum is 1. 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. For I equal to 3, sum will be sum plus I. That means the new value of sum is 3 and their new value of I is 3. That means 3 plus 3 is equal to 6. Okay. So we just write this sum is equal to sum plus I. Only this instruction we should write, nothing else. So this is for A. For B, where we should change? Is it in initialization portion? Is it in conditional portion, or is it in increment or decrement portion? We see that the initialization portion is from 1 equal to 1. There should be no change. Okay, and after 1, that means the condition portion will remain the same. But here we see that the increment is 1 plus 3. That means 2. 3 plus 5 is 2. Okay, so always the difference is 2 here. So we have to write I equal to I plus 2. Nothing else. For B, for series B. And now come to the C. Here we see that the initialization portion is starting from 2. So we have to write I is equal to 2. Okay. So the difference is 2 plus 4, 2 plus 2, 4. The difference between 4 and 2 is 2. The difference between 6 and 4 is 2. That means the value of I will be incremented by 2. So I is equal to I plus 2 will be there. And it will continue up to n. Continue up to n. So there should be no change in any places except initialization portion and increment or decrement portion. Okay, for D, what it will be? This is from I is equal to 1. Initialization should be I is equal to 1. But the increment and decrement portion, we see that 1 plus 5, that means there is a gap of 4. 5 plus 9, there is a gap of 4. Okay, and it will continue up to n. That means the conditional portion is uh, same, will remain same. Okay, but the I is equal to, but the value of I will be I is equal to I plus 4. So easily we can solve any of the series, okay, where the differences are same between two values. We can solve it by using for loop, while loop, or do while loop. You can actually convert this loop by using while loop and do while loop. You can do it alone. Let's try. Now we will see how actually nested loop works. At first, we need to know about what is actually nested loop. When one loop exists inside another loop, we will call it as a nested loop. Okay. So how a nested loop actually works? If there are two loops, one inside another, that time we can call one loop as outer loop and another loop as a inner loop. So if there are two loops, it will look like this. Okay, this is the outer loop portion. This whole is the outer loop portion, and inside this loop there is another loop, for loop. There are two for loop actually. Okay, so when one loop exists inside another loop, that time whole loop call as a nested loop. Okay, so how actually nested loop works, we will try to understand a flowchart. Okay? So at first we'll go to the initialization of the outer loop. After initialization of the outer loop, the compiler will go through conditional part of the outer loop. If the conditional part of the outer loop is false, it will exit from the loop. Okay. But when the conditional part of outer loop is true, that time the task of inner loop will begin. Then it will go at first into the initialization of inner loop, then it will go to the conditional part of inner loop. If the condition is false, that time it will go to the statements of outer loop. If there are any statement in the outer loop after inner loop, then it will go to the statements of outer loop. Then it will go through the increment or decrement part of the outer loop. After incrementing or decrementing the value, it will check conditional part of outer loop. If the conditional part of outer loop is true, then whole process will continue. Okay. Besides, when the conditional part of inner loop is true, then it will execute the statements of inner loop and then increment or decrement the value of inner loop. Then it will go to the conditional part of the inner loop. So condition when every condition is true, that time it will execute the statements of inner loop and increment and decrementing the variable of inner loop. When the inner loop condition is false, it will directly execute the statements of outer loop, then increment and decrementing the value of outer loop, then it will check conditional part of outer loop. So that's clear that how the nested loop works. So we see that if the conditional part of outer loop is false, it will exit from the nested loop. Okay, but when the inner loop condition is false, it will go to the execution of statements of outer loop. Then it will increment and decrementing the value of outer loop. Then it will go to the conditional part of outer loop. Okay, if the condition is true, the whole process will go on. So we see that the inner loop whole inner loop actually performs every time when the conditional part of outer loop is true. Okay, if the conditional part of outer loop is false, it will exit from the loop. So this is actually basic flowchart of a nested loop. Now suppose we need to print those values. Okay, in the first line there is only one value, that is 1. In the second line there is two value, 1 and 2. In the third line there are three value, 1, 2 and 3. So for that, how we can write the code? So we see that they are actually, we can call it as line number. Okay, this is line number 1, this is line number 2, this is line number 3. We can call it. So in line number 1 there is only one value. In line number 2 there are two values to be printed, and in the line number 3 there are three values to be printed. We can write two things. One is actually, one is the line number. There should be two control, one for outer loop and another for inner loop. One control represents line number and another control will represent the value here. Okay, for example, we can write for first variable as line is equal to 1, and there are how many lines? 3 lines. Line is less than or equal to 3. So line will be incremented by 1. Line equal to line plus 1. So this is actually outer loop. Okay. Why this is outer loop? Because in line number 1, there is one value to be printed. Okay. So we say line number 1 at first. Then how many value will be printed? Only one value. That's why actually line will represent that it will be a outer loop variable. Okay. Now in the inner loop there will be actually a variable which represents the whole value. So value is equal to, it will actually start from 1. Okay. So we see that there are, if there is line number 1, then value will be 1. If the line number is 2, value will be 1 and 2. Okay. That means we can write the condition as the value printed here is actually dependent on line number. If the line number is 1, then one value is printed, and if the line number is 2, two value is printed. So we can write value is less than or equal to line. This is the inner loop condition, and value will be incremented by 1, value plus 1. So here we have to printf %d, since line and value both are integer variable. So %d. So what should be printed? Is it line or value? Obviously it will print value. Okay. Every time it will come into the inner loop, then it will print. For the first time it is printing 1. For the second time it is 1 and 2. For the third time it is 1, 2 and 3. After execution of every inner loop, there is a new line. Okay. For that we have to write printf \n. So how it is working? We can say when line equal to 1, we have to check the condition is true, then it will come into the initialization portion of the inner loop, that is value is equal to 1. Value is equal to 1. This is true. Value is less than or equal to, the value of line is equal to actually 1. Okay. So at first time, the inner loop will print only one value. Okay. So it will print the value of 1. Then before printing new line, it will increment the value by 1. Okay. So the value is now 2. This is false. When the inner loop condition is false, it will just print the statement of outer loop. Okay, then it is printing new line here. After printing new line, it will go to the increment part of outer loop, which is line is equal to line plus 1. That now the value of line is equal to 2. It will check the condition of outer loop. Is it true or false? Yes, it is true. When it is true, it will go into the initialization portion of inner loop, which is value is equal to 1. Now value is equal to 1 and line number is 2. So it will print at first. This is true. This condition is true. So now it is print the value of value. Okay. So now what will it print? At first it will print 1. Then after printing the value, first value, it will go to the here increment part of the inner loop, which is value is equal to value plus 1. That means it will increment. Initially the value is 1 and now it will be 2, and the condition is true here. 2 is less than or equal to 2. That is true. So again it will print the value, which is actually 2. Now again it will increment the value by 1. Now the value of value will be 3. So 3 less than or equal to 2. It is false. When it is false, it will exit from the inner loop and it will print a new line here. Okay. Then it will go to here, increment part of outer loop. So now the value of outer loop is 2. It will be increment by 1. Line is equal to 3. So this condition is also true. Okay. When it is true, it will again come into initialization portion of inner loop. That is value is equal to 1 and here this is 1 right now and this is 3. So this condition is true. When this is true, it will print the first value, which is 1. Then it will increment value by 1, which is 2. The condition is true. Then it will print the second value. Again, it will, after executing the statement, it will go to here, which is the value of value will be increment by 1, which is 3. This is true. Condition is true. Then it will print the value of value again, which is 3. Then again, after executing the statement, it will go here. Value is equal to value plus 1. That means value will be 4. Now this is false. When this is false, it will go to the increment portion of outer loop, which is line is equal to line plus 1. Now the value of line is equal to 4. Okay, line is equal to 4, which is false. When this is false, it will exit from the nested loop. If we have to print this, in the first line there is only 1, in the second line there is 2 2, in the third line there is 3 3. What should be the change here? There is 3 line, the condition is okay. There will be no change here. Okay. And how many value will be printed? It will depend on actually line. So that's why this condition will also not to change. So what things we need to change? If we see that this is line number 1, there is 1 1 printed. This is line number 2, there is 2 2 printed. This is line number 3, there are 3 3 printed. That means we should print the value of line instead of value. Now it will print 1 2 2 3 3 3, like that. I hope everybody understands how it works. If we want to write this code and while how we can write it, let's see. So initialization portion of outer loop, which is line is equal to 1, then there will be a condition while line is less than or equal to 3. Then there is another loop. Before writing the loop, we have to write the initialization portion of value is equal to 1 here. Then write condition of value. Value is less than or equal to line. Here we need to print the value of value. Okay. After, sorry, here will be value is equal to value plus 1. Increment portion here. Then print the new line here. Then increment the value of line. So this is actually equivalent while loop for the nested for loop we see before, and it will show output 1 1 2 1 2 3 like that. Okay. If we want output like that 1 2 3 3 3, we just change the value and replace it by line. Okay. So when we print line here, the output will be this. When we print value here, output will be this. In first line there is only 1 star. In second line there should be 2 star. So do it by your own.